Hola, chess people. Coach Matthew back with a chess quickie about how pieces prefer the center. We're going to have a piece in the center of the board, which is e4, e5, d4, or d5 on an open board, meaning it's the only piece on the board. The only piece on the board. So, that's just to see where the cursor is. All right, the king is in the center. It's on e4. Now, on the open board, how many squares can it choose to move to? We've got 3, 4, 8. 8. Now for trainers watching this, this is a good drill to do with beginning students or information to simply present them one way or another. But what you do is you ask the student. You put this piece in the middle of the board, ask them how many squares can this king move to? And of course the answer is it has to pick one, but how many can it choose amongst to move to? And some students will, you'd be surprised, guess. Perhaps in a group class they'll guess. They won't bother to count. So this is a very instructive moment for the student to understand that there is no guessing in chess. You can count, you can calculate, you can figure it out because you can. So count. So 8. All right, let's move the king. And let's put it on the edge. Now this king, how many squares does it have to choose to move to? 5. Clearly 8 is more than 5. Now we don't want our king to be checkmated. So the king in the center is an endgame idea for the most part. You only activate the king when it's safe. Otherwise your king's going to get destroyed. You certainly don't go to the center. In the middle game or the opening with your king, you don't do that. King in the corner. Let's put the king on timeout. Now this, of course, may seem trivial, but just to illustrate, this king has 3 choices. The king clearly has the most movement options in the center. 8. Let's replace the king with a knight. Now this knight, how many squares can it choose to move to? We have 8. This is in the center on an open board. This knight has 8 choices, the same as a king. Now, of course, kings may not touch, so if your king is in the center in the endgame and the opponent's king is out of play, it's as though you're up a piece, because the king and the knight can both move to 8 squares in the center of the board, the open board. Let's move the knight to the rim. Knight on the rim is grim or is dim. Kids say both. I believe it's grim. 1M. Oops. Let's go here. Okay. And I am on the wrong screen. There we go. All right. So this knight on the rim can only move to 4 squares. Not very many. Clearly 8 is more than 4. Let's put the knight in a corner. Actually, you know what? Let's fianchetto the knight. Let's fianchetto the knight. Knight to g7. Now this knight, not on an edge, but close enough to the corner where this knight can only move to 4 squares. 8, once again, clearly more than 4. Now let's put the knight in the corner. This knight can move to 2 squares. The knight clearly prefers the center of the board. Once again, the center, e4, e5, d4, d5. These four squares are the center. The knight prefers the center. Let's throw the bishop on the board. Bishop in the center. Once again, make sure the student, if you're a trainer watching this, make sure the student counts. Now, they can do it subvocally. They don't have to do it aloud. And that may be another good practice for the student, another drill. Don't talk out loud. Do it in your head. So this bishop in the center of the open board, we've got 3, and another 3, and another 3, and 4. So 13. The bishop in the center of the open board can move to 13 squares. I haven't had a student yell 11. That hasn't happened yet. That will happen at some point. I would give that kid a bonus point, I think. Let's move the bishop. Go over here. And let's count. We've got 3 and 4. 7. 13 is clearly more than 7. Let's put the bishop in a corner. How many squares? Doesn't matter what corner, they're all the same. The board is symmetrical. Okay. Let's add them up. 7. So the bishop clearly prefers the center of the board. Bishop on the edge and in the corner can only move to 7 squares. Bishop in the center, 13 on the open board. Now let's try the rook. Rook in the center. Let's count them up. Well, we've got 4 and 3, that's 7, and then 3 plus 4, another 7. So we've got 14. The rook in the center of the open board can move to 14 squares. 14. Let's move the rook somewhere else. Let's put it in a corner. Let's try that out. Corner of where it just was. What about this rook? Well, 7 times 2. We've got 7 this way, and we've got 7 down. 7 times 2 is 14. Put the rook anywhere on the open board. It doesn't matter. The rook is the only piece that has no preference for the center. The rook is the only piece that has no preference for the center. Let's throw the queen on the board. Queen in the corner, why not? Do the rook and bishop squares overlap from the same square? The answer is no. So this queen can move to, we've got 7 this direction. And we've got on the long diagonal, 7, just like the bishop. And boom, 7. 21. Queen in the corner, 21 squares. Let's put the queen in the center. Now, since those squares do not overlap in terms of if the bishop and rook were on the same square, where could they move? We would not have any overlapping squares. So this queen in the center of the board, she's on d4. Let's do the rook. We've got 4 up, 3 down, so we've got 7, and then another 7, of course. The rook has no preference for the center. So 14, and there is no overlap. So what about the bishop? Bishop is 13. 27. The queen definitely prefers the center. Note how the queen can move to every square she is adjacent to. Just like the king, she's a short-range and a long-range piece. The queen prefers the center. So we don't do the pawn in this quickie or drill for the beginner. Once again, for the trainer, incorporating this material into a beginning group class or one-on-one class. If it's a one-on-one class, I would have the student go over the piece and say everything they know about the piece, how it moves, how it attacks, what it likes, what it doesn't like, where it likes to be, where it doesn't like to be, when it likes to be there, when it doesn't like to be there, so on and so forth, and include this information in the one-on-one class. In a group class, you can do this on the demo board and make sure the students understand that they need to count. Now, there's a trick to the 14 plus 13, yes. But sometimes you need to just count and make sure the beginning student understands that so they start counting. So pieces prefer the center. Make your pieces happy and they will in turn make you happy. Thank you for watching.